Well, hello and welcome to the Moviegoers Society podcast brought to you by Nerdtropolis. I'm your host, Sean Targebord, the mayor of Nerdtropolis. And once again, with me is my co-host, Drew Manhausen, the professional media and movie mastermind. Well, hello, Drew. Thanks for joining me on a Thursday night, late night, and we're doing this.
We are. I started off laughing because of the comment that said so far the best new MCU movie in 2025, which I guess is true. And for that matter, Deadpool Wolverine was the best MCU movie of 2024, and I don't think anybody can contest that either.
Yeah, so far the Emmanuel's comment it stands, and that's for sure. And yes, on this episode, we're diving into the latest and so far the best of 2025, best MCU film, Captain America: Brave New World. It's the first solo film with Anthony Mackie taking up the shield. I got my shield behind me, as you can see. This movie is trying to promise some big moments for the future of the MCU, and we're going to break it all down. I know Drew saw it, this afternoon, a few hours ago?
Yeah, I'm fresh. I'm fresh out.
You're fresh. I saw it Monday, and I've been mulling over it a little bit harder, but I did see earlier. And the question is this new chapter of a hero's journey, or does it fall a little short of the cinematic mark? So make sure you stick around, find out if y'all saw it already today, because it does. What time was your showing for today?
I went to one of the early showings this afternoon, and it was not crowded.
I mean, it dropped. I think the earliest I was telling you was 2 p.m. I saw the earliest showing for Captain America: Brave New World. I mean, they start early. I don't remember 2:00 showings for MCU films, unless that's a new thing that's been happening.
Yeah, I feel like usually those Thursday showings start at like 4, maybe a 3:30, at the earliest. So 2:00's pretty early. I mean, they're trying to get this going as early as possible.
Yeah. Valentine's Day weekend, that's happening this weekend. Before we do jump into that, I do want to shout out Warner Brothers Home Entertainment for sending me. They send me cool stuff all the time, Drew. You know that I have to shout these out. Regular show, the complete series. I've caught a few episodes of this in the past. I have not seen I don't know how many episodes are in the series, the full set. Have you seen the show, the regular show?
I am familiar with it. I haven't seen like every episode, but I've seen episodes here and there.
Seasons 1 through 8. I mean, that's impressive. That is impressive. But yeah, this is out now from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. It is a really cool box set, and I've seen a bunch of episodes, just going through Cartoon Network when they have it on, and I have a lot to catch up on. So Drew, come over and we're gonna binge all of this. We're gonna binge it all this weekend. That is a plan. So definitely want to shout that out for sending this my way. I have a lot of awesome shows, I guess, to catch up on. That all these complete series are coming out. I like that, to be honest, Drew. Is lately shows from the past or current ones are now getting like the complete series. I guess obviously they're end of the road, for a lot of these shows. But it's kind of cool that a lot of it's also from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. Like they're really doubling down on providing physical media, which has been in the news lately of really should be the way to go, and people need to understand digital is not really, it's convenient, but it's not. You're a fan of physical media, is that correct?
I am, and I've had multiple occasions now where the internet went out in our neighborhood, and it's like, what do I do? And it's like, well, I have this huge collection of physical media to dive into. Like, let's watch a movie I haven't seen before, or something I bought 3 years ago it's still in the plastic, which is a thing that happens when you collect physical media. Now, I love it. I don't buy as freely as I did years ago. Now,
where do you buy freely? Because all the stores are not even carrying movies anymore.
Yeah, it's true. Once Best Buy stopped carrying, my collecting went down a lot. But even you can't get them at Target. But either way, I really have started to gear more towards the boutique Blu-ray, publishers like your Arrows, your Criterions, your things like that. I'll buy a lot more from those than I do your standard movies. There's a Criterion version of Anora that comes out in April, and I will be buying that. Stuff like they just released a Criterion No Country for Old Men that I want to pick up. Stuff
Oh
like that.
wow.
Especially movies like that. Like I owned No Country for Old Men on DVD, and like I'll
Yeah.
toss that and I'll get the new Criterion for
Toss
it.
that, you gotta keep those around.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if I had more shelf space.
I know, right? It's all about shelf space. But yeah, now talking movies in theaters this weekend. I mean, February's been pretty good so far. I think like you just dropped the review for Paddington in Peru. Um,
Which
Love
I
Hurts,
liked.
which you liked, and his review is on Neutropolis.com. Love Hurts hit last weekend, and so did Hard Eyes. And now you have Captain America Brave New World. There it is right there. um, the first MCU film of the year. And it's going to
Yep.
follow up with Fantastic Four, but also before then, we get Daredevil. Daredevil. I'm excited for that. But in this new Captain America movie, we have Sam Wilson finding himself in the middle of an international incident and must discover the motive behind a nefarious global plan. Drew, did you watch all the trailers that were dropping for this movie when they were promoting it?
I
And did you feel
did.
like
I
it
did.
spoiled everything? Is the question I'm getting at.
Honestly, kind of. So, I'd say there's a key character that's been kind of kept out of the media, but the character was announced as being in the movie early, so I'll kind of try to avoid it now before just diving immediately into spoilers. But a character that I knew was going to be in the movie was kind of kept out of the marketing. But everything else, I feel like painted a pretty good picture of what this movie was, and I feel like I was kind of able to expect how this movie, or like predict how this movie was going to play out beat by beat, and I wouldn't have been very wrong.
I
It's
guess, yeah, I could see that. I kind of went in thinking we're gonna have a different type of story or different kind of layout of how they're gonna deliver the story. And I believe what we see in the trailers, the Red Hulk stuff, shouldn't have been shown at all. That
I agree.
I will just say that. Like we know that was gonna happen, but like, come on, guys, let's leave something for the movie. You know,
I
let's.
completely agree, but like I guess the counterpoint to that is if you don't show Red Hulk in the trailers, I don't know what visuals you do show that get people amped to get into the theater to see this movie. Like I hate to say that, but there's no other big spectacle that you can show in a trailer other than the Red Hulk, I guess.
I mean, you can't show this photo that I just pulled up of Anthony Mackie and a shield and his gear.
I mean,
Let's
don't get
talk.
me wrong, you can show that, but like, what is he doing in the movie? And to be fair, you don't see as much of him in the suit with the shield as much as I'd even want to
That's
in this
true.
movie. There's a lot of him like in a suit or in like casual wear.
Yeah, so let's talk about Anthony Mackie. He's always been solid in the MCU since his debut in the MCU. Uh, he's an underrated fan favorite, I would say. Just because he hasn't had many moments to shine, but he is, and now he finally gets to step into the Captain America role, which lets him shine in this role. And his first solo movie, which I gotta give him props. Like, finally his time has come. This movie gives him like kind of a more of a gritty, commanding presence, and he's just not following Steve Rogers' footsteps. And this movie is for him to make his character his own. And obviously, we have to say that I think Anthony Mackie was the perfect choice to play Falcon, and then leading up to the new Captain America. And obviously, the film's one of the film's biggest highlights. There's a couple of awesome big highlights we'll talk about, but I really think Anthony Mackie did his job in this film. What do you think?
I like Anthony Mackie a lot. I think I'm actually kind of a defender of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which a lot of people like. Of course, right now with this movie coming out, a lot of people are revisiting. There's a lot of rankings coming out of like, here's your ranking of every Disney Plus MCU TV series, and I feel like Falcon and Winter Soldier is always in the bottom half, if not near the bottom, for a lot of people. I like that show a lot, and maybe it's because it came out. We were still kind of in the midst of COVID, and any MCU content we could get was, I was like drooling over it because we had so many things delayed at that time. But I just remember this show coming out and I was watching it like appointment TV. Every day a new episode dropped. And I thought some of the action scenes, especially the big action scene in the first episode that it opens with, was like on par, if not better, than a lot of action scenes in the MCU movies. So the way that show played out and ending with Falcon really taking the role of Captain America, I thought was earned. I thought the suit at the end of that show looked really cool. And now we've been waiting almost 4 years to
I
see it
know.
again in action. And so it's
So
finally here.
long.
So
So
that
long,
being,
Drew. I can't believe how
yeah,
long from that show to the movie. And I think that's probably the biggest problem we're seeing are these big gaps in between what we knew was going to happen. And I'm not sure why it took so long. I mean,
well,
a
this one
lot
was a casualty of getting pushed by the strikes too. This one
was it
got
though?
pushed a
Because
while back.
also I'm gonna say it, there was a lot of reshoots, a lot of issues behind the scenes that are now starting to come to light of not being the best product in the beginning and adding a new character last minute, and we'll get to that as well. Um, but I will say this: I felt like this movie did its best to give us what it gave us, and I thought it was really cool. Going back to the very beginning of the film, how it kind of gets us into the action. There's no traditional Marvel Studios slate. Uh,
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't even realize that at the time, but in hindsight, yeah, it doesn't do the traditional Marvel Studios fanfare.
and I loved it because it got me in this like mode and like kind of like setting the mood, lighting the candles with this really cool. I don't know how to how could you describe that? Because it was not James Bond-esque, but it was like very espionage, like
Yeah, it's trying to be this kind of black ops thriller, more in
yeah.
line with like what if you're comparing it to another MCU movie, like clearly what Captain America Winter Soldier was doing and being kind of a more like military based black ops kind of political thriller. And you can see the inspirations here. I mean, Harrison Ford plays Thaddeus Ross, who's the president in this movie, and he's no stranger to playing the president in other films,
Which I
very famous
love.
movies. But like, and also has a history of playing Jack Ryan, and that like all those movies are kind of inspiration here. Like your Jack Ryans, your Top Guns, your Air Force Ones, and then of course like the MCU movies that preceded as well.
Speaking of Harrison Ford as President Ross, no mustache, right?
No, but you do get,
But
slight spoiler, you do see an image
let's
with
just put
him
this.
with the
I'm just gonna put
mustache.
this. It's gonna hide my face the whole time, probably. Spoiler time. Anyone there? Just making sure you see this. All right. Um,
There's the lines in the trailer too, I think, where he says something along the lines of, "They said if I wanted to be president, I had to lose the mustache." So the mustache is at least referenced.
it's referenced, but it's also shown, which is brilliant, and I can see why. Like, it's not very presidential in the first place. So I kind of like that. I guess you can call it Easter egg. And it's sad that we don't have William Hurt around to really give him this opportunity to showcase what he was working on and giving us in the past. He was such a great addition to the MCU, but obviously Harrison Ford is a great replacement, and not really replacing William Hurt himself as a great actor, but giving us a Ross that kind of similar in some aspects of it, but making it his own. So what did you think of adding a big name like Harrison Ford to this movie?
I think that Harrison Ford kind of stole the movie for me personally. Like, I think that there were times where the movie was in a lull and then Harrison Ford would show back up and I was immediately invested again. He's obviously a movie star who's been around forever. He's a huge presence. But what impressed me a lot with Harrison Ford's been known in the last several years, like actually the last couple of decades, really. A lot of people joke about how he's in his kind of like, I don't care anymore phase, or he's very, he can be kind of a grump. And so when he got cast in this, I was like, oh no, what kind of attitude is he going to bring here? But I thought he was kind of all in on this. Like he seemed like he was genuinely happy to be part of the experience and was having fun. And I'm actually, to talk about other movies that I defend, I'm a defender of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the one that just came out recently, the James Mangold directed one. I liked that movie. Like, I don't think it was perfect, but I think that it's remembered more harshly than it was even received at the time. Like, I actually liked that movie. It's a shame that it underperformed the way that it did, but I thought it was pretty good. And so, here he is now in the MCU, and I thought he was doing really good work.
Yeah, it's a great addition to the MCU. He has said in interviews he wanted to have the fun that he saw everyone else was having, and so we're excited that he's part of the MCU. And speaking of a great dynamic and a great cast, I really love Danny Ramirez as Joaquin, as he's like the new Falcon. I love the chemistry between these two right here. Uh, he's from Top Gun. You just mentioned before we went live that you recognize him from Top Gun. Um,
He
what was
also
this?
just looks like kind of uncanny, like a young John Bernthal. Like, I just
That
think
is
they look so
true. That
similar.
is true. What was his code name in Top Gun Maverick? Do you remember which
Oh,
one he was?
I just had this up in front of me recently too. Not Joker, I don't think, but something like that. Hold on, I can tell you in just a minute.
But they have such great
Fanboy. He's fanboy.
fanboy. Okay, he's fanboy, and he's fanboying in this movie when it comes to
It's true. He
being the
appropriate.
sidekick for Captain America. Like, he's so excited to be teaming up with Sam Wilson. So I really like their dynamic, and it's one of the strongest points of the film. Um, I really think it's great to see, like, they have a very positive relationship. They're not butting heads ever. Very relatable relationship as well, and it's kind of like a buddy cop duo of them too. So there's plenty of heart between these two. And what do you think about his Falcon outfit? Was something I wasn't a big fan of. It was too military looking compared to what Sam Wilson and Captain. Remind me of the Green Goblin outfit from Spider-Man 3.
Oh, like
The Harry
the
Goblin?
Franco one.
Yeah, the
Oh,
Franco.
yeah.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
color scheme and everything and the military stuff, like, was just giving me those vibes.
Yeah, it was a little bit bland. And the way, the wing pack at one point you see it and it doesn't even match the rest of the outfit because it's more like the Falcon traditional with like red on it, but his suit is mostly kind of green tinted. But I agree, it's a little bit bland. And I guess to their defense, that's part of his character's complaint in the movie is like he wants something to be a little bit more his own. He wants to be, yeah, he wants it to be more unique. He wants to learn more skills, that kind of thing. But yeah.
I kind of wanted to see more from his character. We saw a lot, but I think, he still takes a pretty good back seat and comes in when he's necessary. But there's more to his character, I feel like, than what was delivered in this film. It does set up a lot. But I think, to me, I'm going to say this. This film felt to me, it was pieced together kind of strangely.
I agree.
It flowed kind of odd. And at times, you could throw everything out the door, though. If I only had one complaint, someone asked me, I have a complaint about this movie, is it didn't feel like a movie. It felt like a Disney Plus series that was made into a feature film.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't
Just
even
aesthetically,
disagree with you, but yeah.
aesthetically, I just thought the effects and so much of the green screen going back to
sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but I completely agree. There were scenes that, whether they were green screened or what, like in my theater on the big screen in a Dolby screen, it's like, good projection. Things looked odd or out of focus or just didn't look right. Almost like the green screen wasn't done well. Their characters talking to each other where I'm like, are y'all even in the same space? There were things I don't want to. The part I'm talking about is kind of a spoiler, so I don't want to say what it is. But there was one scene in particular that I was almost taken out of the movie because I was like, this does not look good. And that's a complaint of a lot of Marvel movies. I feel like in recent years, there's a lot of them that feel rushed or don't look good. And that was a big complaint about Quantumania when that came out, was like how bad the CGI was and whatnot. And there were a few parts in this movie where I thought the CG looked wonky, or they were using a real Anthony Mackie but CG wings, and it looked CG and it looked awkward. And it's a tough thing to do. Like, I get it's a big ask when you have this character that has wings and it's very dynamic, but there were parts that just looked bad. I
Well,
mean, it really did.
I just think studios are so dependent on the green screen and the blue screen and stuff like that. Like going back to what you said about like really liking Dial of Destiny. Derpy Entertainment said he likes it too. You're not alone. But the problem I had with like even Dial of Destiny is like these Indiana Jones movies don't look practical anymore. You can tell everything's CG now, and so much digital effects and CGI, it takes away from what the movie should be is more grounded, realistic looking. And I felt like this is where Brave New World missed it. Should have made it more as realistic as possible, especially when it's supposed to be more grounded when it comes to an MCU film. Especially like Winter Soldier looked to me was like a very grounded film and didn't have like crazy effects per se. Just like this movie is trying to be like a MCU Top Gun Maverick, and that's not there's not much CGI really in those. They did a lot of crazy stuff for that film, and I think that's what's problematic with this movie is the visuals, because you can say all you want about the story and everything else, but honestly, I think if this looked as sharp and clean as possible and really brought you into a world that you felt immersed in, I think it would have done much, much better with the audiences. And we'll see this weekend, it's just opening night tonight. But so far it's kind of mixed. But like I said, that if I had only one real complaint is it just felt like a Disney Plus product. And I'm
I
not
feel
sure
like
why.
I completely agree, and I don't know I don't know if it's the fact that the MCU movies have become almost like, it's like produced in a factory, like they're just being, shot out on a conveyor belt. Sometimes is how it feels with in
Right.
more recent ones. And don't get me wrong, I like these movies. Like I love the MCU, and I'm always going to go see them. But there is like a quality to them now that just feels like recycled or just moving things in and out. Whereas a decade ago, they were really trying with these movies. They were doing new
Yeah.
things. They were doing new genre. And not to say they're not trying now, but it's just like they really went out of their way to make some of those movies look awesome, and these filmmakers would get to put a little bit of their spin on it. And now this just feels like another movie that kind of came out of the MCU machine that has this kind of bland gray, green, brown tinge to it, some questionable CG, some not great green screens. We have a comment here that said, from Derpy Entertainment, says that the whole movie felt blurry, and that's goes back to what we were saying earlier. Like, yeah, there's just scenes where it's just like this, something seems off here, and especially on this movie that got pushed and had extra time, you would think they would have been able to take the time to make it look really good.
I will tell you this as I pull up Red Hulk, I think this is probably the best thing they did in the film is how
Yes,
great Red Hulk looks.
Red
So
Hulk looked good. I agree.
so good. I really thought they captured Harrison Ford's look into this perfectly. Um, I want to see like Harrison Ford is in a mocap. Is he actually like mocapping all some of the stuff? Like I kind of want to see the behind the scenes stuff of Harrison Ford being Red Hulk. I think that'd be really cool to see because, like I said, he went all in, and I think the Red Hulk stuff is probably some of the best stuff. So weird that this film is world building and doing like a MCU, the future of the MCU setup, which is a pretty strong future. Like it's a sequel to the Incredible Hulk, and that's everyone's been saying that too, and I absolutely agree that this is a follow up to that, and also a follow up to Eternals. So
It's a follow up to the Incredible Hulk, Eternals, and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which are like pretty much all of the things in the bottom of everybody's rankings. So like it's an interesting choice for them to bank their brand new Captain America movie, their first real big screen outing of Anthony Mackie as Captain America, making it a semi sequel to three of the most disliked parts of the MCU. It's a little bit questionable.
I mean, you bring back like Liv Tyler as Betty Ross, and it's like you can't bring back our actual Hulk at all. You can't bring Mark Ruffalo for like some type of cameo or something like that. I don't know where our Hulk is. Do we know? What was the last time we saw our Hulk? What was he doing? Our
Was it
Green
in
Hulk.
She-Hulk? And he was like, "Hey, here's my son."
So he
And that
went
was
off.
it. Has he been back since then? I'd have to
That's
actually
what I'm
look
saying.
at
There's
the
such a
Mark
big,
Ruffalo
it's just such a big
filmography.
disconnect because obviously Edward Norton was the Hulk in that film, and I just feel like it's just two separate types of films. So bringing her back also was a weird thing and kind of making the connection to the original film. Um, it just took
Is
too long. It was just like forced. It felt like.
Is this the point where we can transition into talking about the character that's in this movie that we haven't talked about yet?
I mean, there's a few of them actually. I don't think. Let me. Um, real quick. Here's the suits all together. Um, I dig. I thought the suits looked really good. Like they actually built them out. Speaking of, here is
Oh, these are cool pictures. You've got like
I got a
the
lot of stuff. I
premiere
forgot what
photos and stuff here. I like this. Good job.
yeah,
You did the work.
I tried to last minute. Liv Tyler. I mean, it was exciting to see her in this film, and it's somewhat of a plot point for Thaddeus Ross that he's trying to rekindle a relationship. But I was surprised how long it took for her even to show up, and the whole thing. I kind of felt like it was a forced subplot of the man he used to be and who he's become, and so forth. So who did you want to bring up? Here's the full cast right there. Who did you want to mention? Because I do have two of the villains on this on my notes.
Well, I guess okay. Before we get into the one that I wanted to talk about, we can talk about Giancarlo Esposito because he's obviously in the trailers,
And he's right here in that yellow suit doing his thing.
Sidewinder. You know, he's part of the Serpent Society, and is it spoiler to say not a huge role in this movie technically?
I think it was smaller. Oh, but real quick here, Marie says it's weird that it's a sequel to Three Loaves, but the ties to Falcon Winter Soldier and Eternals at least make sense. I do keep forgetting Eternals was a movie though, a very long movie.
It addresses the question that everybody complains about that movie of like, how did nobody ever notice that there's this giant celestial in the middle of the ocean? Why is nobody acknowledging this? Well, it's acknowledged here.
Well, before we go into Sidewinder more, so that's where the adamantium is. That's her introduction to adamantium and the MCU.
Which this leaked a while back.
Yeah,
I remember there being story beats.
They talk about that. Yeah. But the fact is Japan was the first to it, and that's like the whole conflict. And the political side of things was very interesting with this film, I will say. They didn't feel that natural, and I feel like a big plot point was missing to kind of figure out like what are they using it for. Everything was vague. A lot of vague descriptions of adamantium and what they were wanting to do with it. You can do it.
They basically just say we discovered this thing by mining it in the celestial, and it's stronger than vibranium, and that's really. And
it's good for military and health purposes, but like nothing specific, and no one really did anything. Has not done anything with it, but obviously that is a setup for the Weapon X program and Wolverine and so forth. So it'll be interesting that the fact that Japan were the first to get it, maybe. We'll see Wolverine in Japan. Revisit that. But yes, back to Sidewinder. That was indeed a small role because he was not supposed to be in the movie originally. That was an added character. That's part of the reshoots, I believe.
Interesting. Well, that makes sense because it does feel kind of added on.
It is.
Or not fully fleshed out.
But when he was in it, it was like he was so good. Like his,
he's always Giancarlo Esposito is always great. Don't get me wrong, and he's menacing, and he can play good, and he can play bad, and in this he does a great job of being kind of like this snide, evil. If he had a mustache, he would twirl it, kind of thing.
But it's so weird that this is the character they give him when like there's rumors of like him. Oh, he could be Charles Xavier or whatever you want to do. Okay, I didn't want that to happen, obviously, but like, and so many didn't. But I thought if he's gonna come in the MCU, give him a big role. Don't give him the side villain role. I thought it was a waste of Giancarlo Esposito as Sidewinder. But I hope it's not the end we see him. But like, what are they setting up? They didn't set up much for him. No, he popped in and popped out.
No, he's kind of the like. The distraction. It's like the look over here. Here's this guy to distract from the actual villain of the movie.
Right. But there wasn't much, like, it's a cat and mouse game, pretty much, is what it is, what he's trying to do. But it didn't take that long. I thought it was going to be from start to end. We'll see him popping in and out doing this thing, but it didn't get strung along that much. And that's kind of, I think, the problem with the plot. It doesn't really do what it could have done to solidify it as one of the best like espionage like type of movie for the MCU or something like that. It was it was a light version of what it could have been. And the fact that he's working for someone else, and it's kind of was obvious who he's working for because that leaked. Or do we want to talk about our main villain?
So this is the one that I was wanting to talk about because I
Yeah.
remember the casting news. What had to be years ago at this point of them announcing that Tim Blake Nelson was returning to this role as Samuel Stearns, who he played in the Incredible Hulk movie. Which I remember that being like the Easter egg of that movie, where you see, if anybody who knows comic lore knows that Samuel Stearns is the leader, who's primarily a Hulk villain, in my experience reading the comics. And you see him in the Incredible Hulk movie, like get knocked out and get this giant cut in his head, and then like Bruce Banner's blood leaks down into the cut, and his head's kind of bubbling up like that. And that's the last that we saw him. And I think that after the way that movie was received, and especially Ed Norton leaving and recasting with Ruffalo, like it just kind of seemed like that was something that was never going to be revisited until they cast him in this movie, and that he was reprising his role.
2.0, the Incredible Hulk 2.0. This is
I think the thing that surprised me here, and again, is our spoiler tag up.
I guess I can put it back up. There we go.
Not that I'm trying to cover your face, John.
That's
I'm sorry.
okay.
You are beautiful. So, I knew he was going to be in this movie as the leader. I assumed it would be like a cameo or a small role. What I did not know going into this was that he plays a very big role and essentially is the lead villain of the movie, more or less.
Yeah, which I'm kind of okay with, but I don't know. It just took I don't know. His motive was kind of odd. His motive wasn't strong enough, I feel like, and what he was doing wasn't deadly enough, I think. It's like he failed way too many times for being like so proud of what he can predict and all this stuff and his probability, everything he's capable of mentally. It's like he's actually failing throughout the whole movie, and just shifting. Like he's saying he's planning all this, but like why are you stringing everyone along if you're capable of getting the job done? But I guess at the end, we'll get to it, like what the end scene is, because it's in the trailers anyways. I guess his own thing he wanted to do was make sure everyone knew that President Ross had a demon inside of him pretty much, and kind of make a fool of him. And I was just like, well, that's not really a strong motive, to do all this stuff. He could have done it early on. I know he was in prison apparently, but if he was that smart, it didn't have to take that long to do it.
I will say I liked the design of the leader. And
did you like the Mars attack?
It did kind of look, when you put it that way. I did. I mean, just because the leader, let me actually, I need to pull up a picture of the leader.
He just has a big head. It's an egg head. It's not like it's not like a brain tumor popping out.
There are some more modern versions of him. I'm looking at artwork here where it is more like of a brain head, but typically it is just a big old head. And with this mustache and whatever, and I'm glad they didn't do that. I liked the like kind of green tinted skin and brain imprinted in the head and the green glowing eyes.
I didn't like the green tint. It didn't look real. Like it just looked like it didn't. At times it looked like because of the lighting, it just looked like it would fade away because of the lighting. Right? He didn't look like he was green at times because.
Well, at first you see him, he's kind of in the shadows and his eyes are glowing green, and that was the visual that I thought was pretty cool. And then when he's in the dark, I think the green looks good. It's when he gets out into the sunlight, kind of looks a little awkward.
He just looks pale. he just looks pale on that.
And he wears like a hoodie over it. It's like it's like a weird disguise.
Like I know looks like we're tearing apart this movie, but we're really not, because I do have a very positive score for this movie. It's just going back and looking at it after watching it on Monday and going back, we're starting to nitpick a little bit. But I was truly entertained. I do want to say this. We have a few more things to go over before I wrap things up, but Carl Lumbly is the MVP of the movie. Returning as Isaiah Bradley was brilliant. I think that's probably the strongest part of the movie. I can call it a subplot, whatever you want to call it. Man, what a great actor. I think he's the best actor in that movie. like he makes you emotional with his performance. You feel for him. His performance is powerful, emotional, and it makes you wish that you get a prequel of this like super soldier, this black super soldier that many people don't know about, and in the MCU.
I've
uh
seen fans already asking for that too.
I would watch it. And for people that don't understand like the storyline and everything, after Steve Rogers, there was an actual Captain America that was African American, and he was in the Korean. He's a Korean War veteran, and actually took the super soldier serum. So like that's all comic accurate stuff, which is amazing. And obviously, just like in the comics, Sam Wilson does become Captain America, so all of that is on point. But I'm telling you, this Isaiah Bradley storyline needs to be told. Uh, I think especially if it's from the 50s and then the 1950s is a super cool time to visit something like this. Um,
The problem is then you don't use Carl Lumbly.
no, but you can have him telling his story.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
yeah, he'd be part of it.
yeah,
I agree. He's great, and he works as kind of a great motivation for the Sam Wilson character, and you know, kind of teaching him lessons and working as a mentor. I really like that, and I don't mind him being essentially the motivation for Sam Wilson. I thought I agree. He's very good.
yeah. I
Thought
mean,
Lumley, and I thought that Harrison Ford in particular were both very good.
everyone's really great in this movie. The acting's really good. Uh,
Anthony Mackie's good too. I guess I haven't even really talked much about Anthony Mackie, but it's just like he's
no, you
Captain
didn't.
America.
You gotta
He's
give him his flowers.
I, it's tough. It's tough. I can't imagine the way. I don't know when you're Chris Evans when he was cast as Steve Rogers. I had the same reaction that any other Marvel fanboy at that time had, which is like the guy that played the Human Torch is now playing Captain America. Like this seems off. And then he won us all over, right? And Anthony Mackie's character, Sam Wilson, is very different from Steve Rogers, and they make a point several times in this movie to comment on that to make sure you know that they're aware of that fact. He's not nearly as like buff. He's in great shape, don't get me wrong, but he's not
I
like
mean, he doesn't
Chris
have a
Evans
serum.
managed to get just absolutely stacked
Well, he
for
had to also
these.
because he took the serum, right? Like that's he
Right.
took. So like Mackie can't look like he super crazy big. He has to look more athletic than anything.
And
Uh,
I think the performance he's doing is good. I would have I said this at the top. I would have liked to see him in the suit more. I would have liked I don't know. I just feel like and sometimes this happens in these Marvel movies where it's like the main character, the main hero almost gets outshined by everything happening around the character, but I almost felt like parts of Anthony Mackie got lost in this movie because there's so much going on. The movie
right.
moves really fast and it's
It's
constantly
true.
making you be like, look here at the new Falcon, look here at Isaiah Bradley, look here at Sidewinder, look here at the leader, look here at Red Hole,
And then you have Sabra too, like the Black Widow Red Room uh
mhm.
agent. I mean, you have a lot of new characters being introduced and then bringing in old ones, and it was a lot to balance
It's
at the same time.
it's tough. You're asking him to take on the mantle of Captain America while also trying to fit a movie into an MCU that's like dozens of movies deep
Right.
and
Trying to answer
essentially
questions from the other movies and then trying to tie
yeah,
everything in. Yeah.
and also like set up somebody to be a leader of a new Avengers team because the Avengers are referenced here, and the desire to restart the Avengers or start a new Avengers team is mentioned in this movie, which that's it's really just mentioned and that's it. But I don't know, it's a lot to take on. I think that Anthony Mackie is good in the movie, but when you're in a big MCU movie like this with a lot going on, it's just you kind of almost walk away thinking of all the other things other than, than Anthony Mackie himself.
Just because a
I
lot of
hope I'm
moving
saying that
parts.
eloquently. I don't know.
No,
It's
and
hard.
I get it because also it's not it should have been just a Captain America movie and focus on him, but it's focusing on other people and other things as well and other subplots that were from other movies that are being questions that we're getting answers to questions from other films, and I'm just like, that's probably why it's not going to be the strongest MCU film. It's definitely not the weakest MCU film. Like it's actually a really solid, fun film. Like I was glued the whole time. The only thing that took me out of the movie was some of the CGI in the scenes. Like you felt like the what do you call it? This scene right here. The cherry blossoms?
Hmm.
I thought the cherry blossoms was the weirdest thing to have in the movie. First of all, this is supposed to be in DC, this part of it. There's the cherry blossoms of Japan they were showing, but this where they're having the battle with Hulk, is this in DC?
I mean, it'd have to be. It was like just a hop, skip it
Right?
away
It's yeah,
from
where he
the
was
White
doing
House.
so I'm like, why are there so many cherry? I know like that's the thing with his daughter, but there was an overload and the cherry blossoms did not look real. Like I think that was the problem too. There was like an army of cherry blossom trees.
Apparently,
And
there is a whole thing in a National Cherry Blossom Festival in Washington
is
D.C.
it really like that
and
much?
there are cherry blossoms there near like the Jefferson Memorial and
Really?
stuff. So
Okay.
apparently, this is a thing. Yeah.
And the pictures look good compared to what we saw in the movie. Like, is I just thought the cherry blossom stuff looked so weird, and there's just such a weird vibrancy with like a big
I mean, I'm
and
sure that they accentuated those cherry
yeah,
blossoms
they
in the
did.
movie with some CG to make them look a certain way, but there are apparently cherry blossoms in DC. So
Well, it's good to know. You learn something every day about
right,
cherry
it's not
blossom.
something I would have known either in some pop culture Jeopardy or whatever it'd be, which I've watched way too much of recently, but that's neither here nor there. Um,
But this scene right here, which is almost like the final scene, it's the big battle with Red Hulk. Man, that came so late. I didn't know that was gonna be like a finale battle or something like that. I really thought that part in the trailer where he's hulking out behind the podium was early on, or at least midway through.
mhm.
I didn't know they were holding that towards the end, which I thought was a waste.
It's tough because it means that most people who go to see this movie are going to be watching the whole thing going like, yeah, but when does the Red Hulk show up?
And when he does,
And
it's
the answer
awesome.
is in the last 20 minutes.
Yeah. So that's probably the second thing I would say after the CGI stuff is just Red Hulk a little bit too late. It would have been nice if he kind of teamed up at I just feel like the plot could have just gone a little different and we could have had like a bigger and badder villain that was really a true danger to everybody. I mean, he is a dangerous his powers are dangerous, but like how he was using them was kind of light.
Yeah, it's first off like of the Sam Wilson stuff. I did like the kind of internal struggle with like actively choosing not to take the super soldier serum and being
Yeah.
true to himself and that's not it's not why Steve chose him to carry the shield. You know, that part of it was that he's not a super soldier. And I did laugh. There's like a part during the fight with Red Hulk where he's like, you know, I should have taken the super soldier serum. That made me laugh. But
I mean, Sam Olsen is tough. Like he is tough, and the fact that he has no powers and he has to train like against the biggest odds and the biggest villains. Like he's training against Isaiah Bradley in this. And that's how he's kind of like being really good at fighting. Is literally training against a super soldier. So I really appreciate them showing that aspect of it. Of that's how he's training. But I really thought, people are hating on this film a lot. We're just nitpicking a little bit here and there. We're not really tearing it apart. I honestly enjoyed it. I thought it was a very different type of MCU film that we've seen in the past. Obviously, it was more grounded, but I was entertained throughout. It's a lot of fun, and if you want to really put it against the other ones, I think it's on par with some of the last MCU films that were pretty solid. Um, Even though it does struggle to be as cinematic as it could, I think that's really what hurt it is the cinematic aspect of it. It's still entertaining and some big moments, and I think it sets up the MCU right now pretty decently. I mean, it could have done more, but I think some of the things addressed in it, we'll see moving forward.
I'm a bit more mixed than you, I think. I'm kind of like right down the middle, honestly. I didn't as I was watching it, I was entertained and I enjoyed myself. But I did have moments that took me out of it where I was like, man, this doesn't look good. And I just think now taking a step back and examining what this movie was doing or trying to do, and did it succeed? And I'm kind of like, I don't really know. Like, I do like Anthony Mackie as Captain America, Sam Wilson, Captain America. I like the suit, I like the shield, I like the morals, I like some of the things that they did to power up the character. Like, we didn't even mention that his wings have essentially been upgraded by the Wakandans to give him kind of like the Black Panther. I
It's
don't
like the
know how
kinetic,
you,
it absorbs the kinetic energy and like
yeah,
feeds it back, or
energy
yeah.
blast. Like, I thought that was all really cool, but like a lot of this movie just feels very Frankenstein together, I guess, a little bit. You mentioned that Giancarlo Esposito's character was added on later. I think you can tell um, the fact that it chose some of the lesser aspects of the MCU to really build this one up upon is a strange decision. I just I know you and I rate movies very differently, but I'm probably closer to like a 2.5 or a 3 out of 5, like just right down the middle. That I enjoyed myself, but I almost kind of feel like I enjoyed myself, but I don't feel like it was a good movie in a weird way. But I feel like that's being a little too harsh, because if I enjoyed the movie while I was watching it, there should be something to say about that. But I feel like this is going to be one of those that critics are really going to tear it apart. That
I
your
mean, they have
MCU
been.
fan,
I think it's rotten on Rotten Tomatoes, unfortunately. But a lot of the people that I know are on the same page as me, because we didn't we went in with somewhat mild expectations. Um, I didn't expect anything to be a knockout, but it's on par with how I felt with the Marvels, because I really enjoyed that too. It's better than the third Ant-Man movie. I will say that. You know?
yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree. It's better than that too. But this still feels like, when all is said and done, is this going to be in the top half of my MCU rankings? No. And um, we're getting comments now about like people glazing the MCU and liking these movies, and I just don't feel like that's the case anymore. Like, I think that we've seen it in the box office. We've seen it with everything. Like, the MCU movies are in a little bit of a rut, and Deadpool and Wolverine was a little bit of an anomaly, and it did a whole lot of
Yeah.
different things, and it made a whole lot of money at the box office. So it was good. It was good for Marvel. It was good for Disney. How's this one going to perform? I don't know.
I
I
mean,
saw some
I saw some
estimates.
numbers. It seems like it's just 10 million short of its budget. I think it's going to make 130 this weekend globally, I believe.
I've seen actually closer to like 190. I've seen it could make as much as 80 million in the US, and then upwards of 110
So what was its budget?
worldwide.
Like
And
180? Like, I have numbers confused in my head. Either I read it was like 180 was the budget, or 140. I don't remember. But it's going to either
it's
be
always
short.
hard to tell with these, because how much they spend on marketing and what's
Right.
not, what we don't see in that budget. It's always a lot more than what they say. But I don't know. I feel like people aren't glazing the MCU anymore. Like, I feel like people are a lot more critical, because these movies, really post Endgame, have been of varying degrees of quality. The fandom is really invested in these because we're so deep in them, and it's
Right.
easy to pick them apart. And now, because there have been movies that have set a high bar, you get one like this that looks ugly and has some issues, and like, it's pretty easy to roast it.
But it gave us Red Hulk.
It did, and Red Hulk looked good, and Harrison Ford was great. And here's a question for you, because he is referenced multiple times in this movie as Thunderbolt Ross, Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, and they comment on the nickname. Obviously, we've got Thunderbolts coming out later this year, and there's been speculation from people if Red Hulk is in that movie or part of that team, which it's seeming not likely because of the way that movie has been marketed. I don't know
Right.
how he would even fit into that, but like, it seems like the Thunderbolt team would be named the Thunderbolts because of Thunderbolt Ross and being involved or overseeing the team. So how do the Thunderbolts get the name Thunderbolts if Thunderbolt Ross is not
Well, I'm gonna
involved in
put
some
this real
way?
quick. I'm gonna put spoilers over my face real quick, so y'all just know. Well, we do have a connection to the Thunderbolts movie, because we get Bucky shows up.
It's
Uh,
true.
so that, and he's like, what? He's a congressman.
Yeah, he's
Um,
getting involved in politics.
so that's your first sign of something's going on. All right. The Thunderbolt stuff. I've read something online that it may have been spoiled in a international poster of why it's called that. It's pretty much that the Avengers are not available at this time. So you
Hmm.
have the Thunderbolts. Like that's like it's the B team. It's like the Avengers B team. It's called the Thunderbolts or something like that.
Right.
It's like the Suicide Squad, I guess you can call it, you know. And the asterisk is just meaning it's because the Avengers are not available or something like that. I don't know. We'll see if that's true. That's probably the tie-in. I don't think we're gonna have Harrison Ford in that movie at all, unless he like pops in somehow in a random way. But I don't see that happening at all. Um, but I what trailers before we wrap things up? What trailers did you see? Did you get to see Fantastic Four and Thunderbolts ahead of it?
Yep, there were 4 trailers, and they were the 4 trailers that are obviously more geared toward MCU fans.
Okay,
I
let me
saw
see.
a
Okay, so let me guess them. Okay, so
yep,
obviously one's Thunderbolts,
yep,
Fantastic Four,
yep,
Jurassic World.
yep.
Okay, four could be obvious. I'm trying to think. Oof. And
Sean,
Superman.
think of your birthday,
Superman.
my friend.
Superman. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Superman. I was like, I'm missing a July one. Superman.
Yep.
That's pretty good. That's a fun trailer.
Three movies that all come out in July. Worth noting. I saw this movie with my father, and he just leaned over and goes, "Going to be a busy July."
Yeah, so we'll be really busy that July. So there you have it, folks. Something for y'all to watch this weekend. There's a lot of movies to watch in February. I made a post today is I'm championing Dogman still. I think that is such an underrated gem. But there's a lot of stuff to watch. Obviously, this weekend is a great weekend to go watch Captain America: Brave New World. Get your MCU fix, get your Red Hulk fix. But other than that, there's other films like Hard
If you have
Eyes.
younger children and you want to do something family friendly, like Dogman, like you mentioned, but also Paddington and
Yes,
Peru comes out this weekend, and
good old Paddington.
I opened my review with saying that a lot of times, cinephiles like to argue and complain about things, but the one thing they're all in unison on is that everybody loves the Paddington movies, and that they're feel good movies. It makes everyone just happy, and I'd say this one has a different director.
Oh, it does have a different director. That's right.
It might feel a little bit lesser at times than the first two, but it's still a perfectly enjoyable, feel good Paddington movie. Like it fits in well along the other ones, I'd say.
Also, you can check out Hard Eyes if you want some hard R rating action there. And there's a film we didn't get to see of Love Hurts, which I hear mix things up, but there's a little bit of everything for everyone out there, which I love right now for the movies and stuff like that. Especially
Hard Eyes, which you and I really championed, and then it didn't perform that well. I honestly thought it was going to do a lot better at the box office.
well, let's see this weekend. It's like this is the weekend it should have been released, but it was going against this film.
Oh yeah, you could not release it against this. It'd be dead before it even arrives.
We shall see. But yeah, Captain America: Brave New World. In the comments, if you have seen it already, let us know what you think. Are y'all pumped for Mackie being the new Captain America? I know everything's kind of mixed on that, but it is what it is when it comes to that. But also don't forget to subscribe and check out nerdtropolis.com whenever you can. And I hope y'all enjoyed this live episode that, we should be doing a little bit more often. We're trying to do more often. It's kind of tough. This is a new little concept we have. But as we see more movies, we're doing more of these. And maybe, Drew, I need you to join me on my next trailer reaction. I could not do that alone. It was kind of hard. I'm not going to lie.
I'm sorry, I couldn't do it at that early in the morning.
No, I know. That's why it was hard. Because it said it was going to drop at like 6 a.m. So it's awake at 5. It got like pushed to 7. I'm like, oh, this is dreadful. This is not the first trailer reaction I should have picked. I should have. It was.
And I actually thought the same as you. Like I thought it was going to launch at whatever time, and then they put a countdown that seemed like it was going to be another hour, and you were already live. I was like, what is Sean going to do for an hour? Luckily, that wasn't the case.
No, not the case. But once again, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Moviegoers Society. We will definitely catch you next time. And as always, we will see you at the movies.